Today we were talking with Tamara Qualls. She's the owner of Polished. I asked her here because as I am beginning to age, turned 51 recently, I'm thinking more and more about my skin. And I also want to encourage people to think long before your 50s about how you can prevent some of the things that I neglected over the years that so many of us do. Thank you for being here, Tamara.
You're welcome.
So you and I have been wanting to do this for a bit. So thanks for making the time. I know how busy you are with all of the work that you do. And you look beautiful as always. Every time I see you, you look exactly as beautiful as you do right now. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So I wanted to talk to you first of all. We're going to get into some of the tips that we can offer people as preventative, so that maybe as they age, they have less need for intervention, we'll call it. And then as well as some of the things that we can do to maintain our skin or improve our skin, whatever it is that we need. There's a plethora of options now, that even more and more as the years go on. So first of all, though, let's talk about your story and how you came into this line of work and why it's so important to you.
Thank you. Well, I think that a lot of us, we sat around the table with our moms. Well, that would probably be about right where we began. So we'd sit around, do some nice skincare, and go right into the makeup, with the brands that we used to do several years ago. And so that just kind of really loved the bonding with my family. And I really loved that I felt really good afterwards. I always noticed how soft my skin was. Well, and I think I just carried that throughout my whole life. And I was never a huge sunbather, but I always knew that I had to wear some kind of protection. And so I think that that's where it started. And then, had to make a choice in a career, which I ended up in the healthcare industry, and really learned a lot of compassion, fell in love with people, and then just continued on with my career, taught skin a little bit. And then guess what happened? I grew up and my child went on a trip, and I was there by myself with my husband. And I thought, my goodness. So I figured, well, what needs to happen is I need to continue layering my career in doing something that I really love to do, which took me back to school so I could own my own day spa, so I could teach people about their skin and actually work on them and educate them so they would feel their best always. So that's kind of just in a nutshell how it started.
And you talked about sunbathing. I sunbathed and I used tanning beds before we knew that we shouldn't, or that they're harmful. They can be harmful. Right. I better be careful how I say that, right? And I remember laying out on our roof with baby oil,
right,
and all of those stories that I'm sure you hear. And I'm fortunate in that hereditarily, I've had oily skin, and maybe it slows down some of my aging. I don't know what it is. My grandmother was in her 80s and didn't have a wrinkle. So we do have that. I'm guessing some of that's hereditary, but also we get to choose. We have free will in how we treat our skin. And so lying out in the sun the way I did when I was younger isn't so great for now and as the years progress. I remember one time being at a baseball game, and that was kind of our time to get, a little bit of a tan at the end of, toward the end of the school year. And we always joke that the baseball moms were or the basketball moms were going to have better skin than the baseball moms, because the basketball moms were in a gym and protected from the sun. But I was sitting with a friend who's a decade older than me. And, I was just kind of ready to get a tan that day. And she was layering up and covering up. And I said, I read somewhere that what you do now doesn't really affect your skin for like a decade. So, I'll be 55 years old then, I said. And she said, well, you're going to care when you're 55. So I was 45 at the time. And that really changed my thinking about how what we do now really affects us later.
It's absolutely true.
Is sun damage one of the things that impacts us the most in your practice?
Wow. Yeah, sun damage is it's pretty far up there. We do love our sun tanning beds. I see a lot of that, and a lot of people that just say, I just can't wait for the sun. Well, we all want the sun, but you're absolutely right. It layers over time. And so if you would look at a picture of somebody's legs that have been covered by pants that work and their arms that have not, I think that it might change your mind about, we love our sun, but you must protect yourself.
must protect ourselves. And
Mhm.
the other thing too about the sun is, we have ways now to use,
Mm.
color on our skin with
Right.
tanning lotions and
Mhm.
layers and polishes and things. And,
Right.
but even a layer beyond that is I use an app that tells me how safe a product is, anything I put on and in my body. And the the self tanner that I was using was a really lowly rated
Mhm.
a tanning it was like a foam. And
Right.
so I was able to find an alternative that works for me that makes me feel okay that I'm putting this over my entire body, which is our biggest organ, our skin.
Right. It's true.
So even when we're choosing how to, if we're avoiding the sun and we're using other ways to get color on our skin, we have to think about those things
Well,
too.
yeah, because just because we are using a sunless tanning product does not protect us from the skin. You have to make sure that you have got a physical or chemical sunscreen on there with a 30 or a 50 on there. You've got to make sure you're layering it every 2 hours. So making sure that once again, and they have ones that are really, really lovely for our face. So when we are out there, you can and some of them actually just kind of go to the natural pH balance of your skin and it just blends and gives you luminosity. So there are some really lovely things that we can say that make us look beautiful, but oh, we are really protecting so we don't have to deal with actinic keratosis, sun damage, leathery skin, and it helps. Also, when you do not have a lot of sun damage, you can get a lot of fine lines and wrinkles due to water loss. So yeah, it's
Okay.
true.
So let's talk then too. Well, let's take a break and we come back. I want to talk about for the people who are not quite at the level where, well, they're young and they're thinking, okay, what can I do to prevent some of these problems I might have later? And then we'll
Sure.
talk about how you react and what we can do to treat some of those things. We're
Sure.
talking
Yeah.
with Tamara Qualls, owner of Polished. We'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
We are back talking with Tamara Qualls, owner of Polish. We're talking all things skin. We've talked about sun damage already, how important it is to protect your skin. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, I feel like my mom probably mentioned things like, the things we have to do to take care of our neck. And I
Mhm.
definitely was taught, we called it, we need to go wash up, get ready for bed, wash my face every night. Probably only twice a year do I not take off my makeup before bed. It's part of my routine with brushing my teeth, same thing. So question then, there are people who are just starting out in their skincare. Maybe they're quite young, in their 20s or something, and want to know what can I do to make sure that I've taken the best care of my skin by the time I get to Lisa's age, 51. And then there are people who are about my age and saying, okay, what do I need to do to protect my skin going forward? And how do I clean up some of the messes I've made?
Right.
And they're coming to you with maybe a budget or
Mhm.
overwhelmed, not knowing where to start. But I would
Mhm.
say we need to wash our face would be probably the number one thing we need to start with.
Correct, correct. So, you know what? I think that you are right when we talk about our neck. I think that we forget about our neck a lot. And so it's really important. I always say, from the hairline down to the décolleté, make sure that that is covered. If people are younger and they are coming in, a lot of times they're dealing with different kinds of hormones. We're at a different place than we are when we
Right.
are in our 50s. So sometimes it can be a little bit more simple. I always say, you know what? At least if you can do it quarterly, make sure that you get your facials, make sure that you get your skin examined because we are basically the conduit between you and your dermatologist because we get to watch your skin change. So
Right.
cleanse when you have your facial, you can go ahead and then we can direct you on always cleanse, always feed, and then go ahead and moisturize to keep that barrier nice and firm. As we age, we might have different problems with seeing some sun damage, with seeing some adult onset acne, with seeing our pores and the structure of our skin change, which really means, maybe some redirection with how we clean and then adding growth factors, possibly stem cells, hyaluronics, vitamins to our skin to repair and rebuild that barrier and going forward from there.
And the barrier that you're talking about too, it's start your day and your night with the barrier, right? So we're putting on something before we even put on our makeup.
So yeah, when I refer to barrier, it is our skin. It's what we actually see. It's our epidermis.
Okay.
And so that is basically the protection into our body. And so we must feed it and we must protect it. Correct. So that's what I'm referring to as your barrier. Yeah.
Well, when also talking about how when we decide that we want to come in and have a service, let's say, what are some of the things? So you don't want to get certain things done for a special occasion that's in a week because maybe your
Correct.
skin's going to peel or maybe it's going to respond differently.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that we would do what are things that we see immediate results?
Mhm.
And what are things that we would need to come in over time? What are some examples of the treatments? Because
Right.
I read a lot in preparation for our conversation.
Mhm.
And in reading about it, I really felt overwhelmed about, well, you do this, so you don't have to do that. Or if you do this, you don't do that. What are some of the do's and don'ts? And what are the things that are good paired together or things that you do separately so that, like I said, you don't get a peel right before you're going to a
Correct.
wedding or
Well,
something.
that's a really good question. And a lot of people do ask that. We get that daily. They don't know where to start because there is so much. So that's a really true statement. So, when I work with people, they come in, take them
Mhm.
back, and I'll clean their skin and we will go over what's going to be best. What I can tell you, you will never have downtime. And what I am known for, 90% of my clientele do hydrofacials.
Okay.
Hydrofacials, dermaplanes, there's no downtime. It's literally red carpet. It's the most beautiful thing. You go through a three-step detox cleanse, and we go through a light glycolic salicylic, very, very light, so it can combines the brightening component and the exfoliation, and we go right into boosting and hydrating that skin with light therapy, sealing it down. And so they are for all ages, and you just feel amazing, amazing when you leave. Yes, and if you are in a position where you want something that is possibly later on down the road, you can get a peel, and there are peels that you won't have downtime with that just add a lot
Right.
of lumination to the skin.
Now, some things what I've heard over the years and what I've been afraid of in the past is, I used to break out and
Mhm.
I was afraid to get a facial thinking, oh, I'm going to break out from a facial. But really that's stuff that was under the skin already. Is that right? What about the people who are afraid to get facials because they don't
Well,
want to break out?
that's very true, but also people can also be compromised already. Their skin barrier can be compromised. It can have a lot of irritants going on in their skin. And so we work with people that are really genuinely very sensitive to people that have a lot more intact barrier or skin per se. And so there may be when somebody has a lot of congestion around their T-zone, it's possible, but I think that probably only about 5% of people actually do go through a breakout, and also could be making sure that they're treated correctly.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk more specifically about some of the things that we can do now that we've done some damage and what that looks like and what are those specific treatments. And also, just trying to get a sense of when we know now how to do better, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we're preventing and going forward? Because you made a good point. At any age, we need to be thinking about this. So just because
Correct.
I'm now 50, I don't think, well, this is the skin I'm stuck with. This is what I did to myself
Right.
for the last 50 years. So I have
Right.
to live with it because I like to
Right.
think that there's a lot that I can still do
Right. Right.
to keep it going. So we'll
Right.
talk more in just a minute. We're back with Tamara Qualls, owner of Polish. We're talking all things skin. One of the questions I have for you is about light therapy. There's a
Right.
couple of different light therapies that do different things for us. Let's start with blue light therapy.
Okay.
What is that exactly and how does it help us?
Right. So that's a really good question. So blue light therapy is also known for the treatment that you get to treat acne with.
Okay.
So when we get, there's a lot of swelling and
Mhm.
inflammatory response when it comes to acne. So what it does is it really kind of gets in there, stops the inflammatory issue, can kill some of that bacteria in there.
And then red light therapy?
Anti-aging all the way. So red light
All the way.
therapy is really, really known for its collagen. So, well, to help that collagen turn over at a quicker rate as we age. Also, red light therapy is really loved. So when you go and you cleanse your face and you put on a product, or somebody in a med spa puts on a product, the hyaluronics actually and the peptides and all the vitamins are delivered at a quicker rate with your red light therapy, which makes it more effective. The efficacy goes through the roof when you get to secure that down with your red light therapy.
So then at what age do we start to rapidly lose our collagen?
Gosh, you know what? I say that you really start noticing a difference in your 40s. So I turned 53. So I noticed a difference in mine where I actually had to double layer my different peptides and my different vitamins. When I turned about 52 is when I really started seeing that loss. Yeah.
Okay. So next year for me to see it even more. I notice it already for sure, but I know everyone's different. I have a cousin who's 3 years older than me. And so as she starts to notice things, she tells me, like,
Right.
the thing about, our eyelashes aren't as thick, but we've got hair places we don't want it,
Isn't
like
that so funny? It's true.
I
Every
spend
bit
more
of
money
it.
trying to keep hair places than I do on almost anything on my body, like,
It grows
keeping
overnight.
my eyebrows and keeping my eyelashes and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, so I appreciate that about her. So everyone ages at a different rate, but
Right.
I feel like she's pretty spot on about the things that she tells me about. And within a couple of years, I start to notice. So it is a nice preemptive to what I have. Sometimes it's good stuff, and sometimes it's stuff that I really have to think about in terms of
Right.
taking care of my skin. Now let's talk about a scalpel procedure. That sounds super scary, but you have to be really well trained to do it. What do you do with that scalpel?
Oh, dermaplane. So dermaplane is really known for a couple of things. It removes all of vellus hair. So vellus hair is like the peach fuzz that we see on
Yes.
our skin. And
Yes.
believe it or not, it can really cause us to look quite shadowy. So
And does it
once
come
that
back
is
once you do that procedure? How
good
quickly?
question. Well, you know what? I say some of my clients come in just because they really love that smooth texture about every 4 weeks, but you can do it. I think that most of them start seeing a little bit of change and growth at about 8 weeks. Does not grow back thicker. It does
Yeah,
not grow
that's what
back
everyone's going to
darker.
wonder. Are you going to look like
It's
you have a
very
beard
true.
now?
No, you cannot, because you can't grow extra follicles. It
Yeah.
just is the process in which your hair grows back, and it actually grows back pretty soft when it finally does. And then so not only does it remove your vellus hair, but it removes additional layers of your stratum corneum, which is basically the skin that you visually get to see in all of the dead skin with it. So the reason it's so outstanding is you get an exfoliation and you get to remove the shadowing from the extra vellus hair that we have. It leaves you really, really like glassy looking. It's really lovely.
And what is the one of the better procedures for acne scars, whether they're pitted scars or they're just coloration scars? Each of those, I'm guessing it might be something different.
Oh yeah. So you know what? It all depends on also what causes it. So always resurface. You're going to have a resurfacing, which is going to be in treatment, which is when you're getting your facials. You can go ahead and go to a med spa and get like retinols. You can also go ahead and go to a dermatologist and get like a tretinoin or a retin-A, which definitely you're going to have to make sure that somebody works with you and that you are trained on that. Because when it comes to the scarring, you're going to have to resurface, and it just depends on how bad it is, and also to prevent further breakouts. Yeah.
I used Retin-A in high school for my skin, and I got the worst sunburn of my life because I
It
didn't
is
heed
true.
the warning about sunscreen, and my face was literally like leather for a couple of weeks as it healed. And I knew I was only 16 or 17, so I wasn't
Right.
thinking that far ahead. But
Right.
even then, I knew this is going to cost me later
Well,
somehow.
and you really, really have to have somebody that's willing to take the time and to walk you through how much, what's the dose, have it customized, and then how often you can use it. And some people can really start out using it right out of the gate, and other people, well, it depends on the percentage too, but then also how often you want to use it. So all of those components are really important when you are talking about resurfacing skin,
Really good
whether it's even
communication.
acne or whether it's just anti-aging. It's really
Right.
important to have somebody that wants to take the time and educate you and check up with you too.
Make
Yeah,
sure you have that communication.
correct.
Okay, and last but not least, we have a good chunk of time to talk about this, so I want to dive in as deep as you want. I
Oh,
know
sure.
that you don't do it specifically in your
Right.
spa, but I want to talk about Botox and
Mhm.
fillers because that is
Okay.
something that's talked about a lot in my age group of friends. And
Correct.
some of my friends started it as preventative, I'm
Mhm.
told,
Yeah. Yeah.
several years back, and some are just now
Mhm.
doing it. I have not done it. I can see places that it might work, and then I think, oh, well, this area, and someone says, oh no, that would need a filler, or this would be a Botox area. So can you just clarify some of it for us so that we know
Oh, yeah.
exactly what it is and where it benefits us?
Right. And so, first of all, the thing I really want to talk about is when you're choosing your provider, make sure that they are seasoned in what they do and that even perhaps they have befores and afters and really great reviews. Word of
Yes,
mouth is usually always the best.
for sure.
So Botox, well, you want to freeze the muscle, right? You don't want it to go anywhere. And so Botox is a neuromodulator and it doesn't allow your muscles to move. I think I'm seeing a lot where it's actually being used a lot all over the face. Now, um, it used to be more common just in the forehead, but now you can kind of do it superficially underneath the eye a little bit. And then I've seen them use it at the top of the nose. I personally have
Yes, right
not had
here,
yet,
right?
right? And then also like right here, I've seen these things.
Oh,
Now
at
I
the
have
top of it.
not, mhm. When we are just doing our research and we are learning because things change so
Right,
quickly.
right.
And so that is definitely something that you can talk to the person that you choose to go ahead and do. But what it does is it really just kind of freezes that muscle so you don't have the expression line.
Okay.
Now, something that I have found that really make a big change in like the hollowness underneath the eye is when
Okay.
you get filler. So filler is where it adds volume instead of freezing that muscle. It adds volume to your face. Like the hollowness can be added on the temple area, the cheek area. um
Every time you're saying something, I'm like kind of glancing over at my face thinking, okay.
isn't that fun?
Yeah.
And
Uh,
some people are really quite conservative when they put it in. Other
yeah.
people, just go in. Of course, the lips are very popular. Once again, you're going to be able to see the provider that you choose. Definitely do the befores and afters. And so the filler works really good for just adding some of that youthfulness, filling in, because over time we lose bone mass and we lose collagen. Our face does kind of start to look a little bit more narrow towards that chin. And then we look like we are losing elasticity around that jawline. And so a lot of filler and Botox can be used in those areas depending on what you want to achieve and do. Mhm.
Well, you are a wealth of knowledge and information. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour or two to
Well, we
get
do
all
love what
of
we do, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, getting to do what you love and figuring out a way to bring it to our community and earn a living doing it. I mean, those are all pluses, but I know how much you love what you do. And you always look so lovely, as I said at the beginning of the show. I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with us, and I'd love to have you
Yeah,
back sometime.
I'd love to come back.
Take good,
Thanks for having us.
yes, take good
Bye
care.
bye.